What's up, everybody? I am Dario Kristen. Welcome back to another episode of Black Hollywood Lives: The Trend. Joining me is my beautiful co-host, Courtney Stewart. What's up, Courtney?
What's up? What's up? We're back.
We back. We back. It's Black History Month. It's, we black every month, but it's, we celebrating this month again.
Right.
We continue to celebrate.
Yeah.
Continue to celebrate. The party keeps going.
Always.
And joining our party today, we got a nice little executive producer in the house. He's killing it right now with Lady in the Dale. That's on HBO. I'm obsessed with it right now. We're gonna get into a lot more about this story. But Andre Gaines is with us today, man. How you doing?
Good. Nice to see both of you guys. I'm digging the celestial background. I love the stars.
I know. I'm the odd man out. I'm all about my background. Here's what I say. It is. The backgrounds represent my mood for that day. So when you see the rain clouds, you got something to worry about. If you see I'm out in
right.
We're good.
We're good. Yeah. Well, you got to put some rain in LA here because we don't have any rain.
Yeah,
so you got to pretend like it's there. Yeah, but
they teased us. They teased us. We thought we were gonna get some, and then it went to 72 again. I'm like,
well, they're getting nailed in the East Coast. So anytime they're getting nailed out there, we've got beautiful weather out here. So
beautiful.
Totally fine. So, but thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
We're excited to talk about everything and your projects and a lot of good stuff that's coming from you.
Yeah, thank you.
100%.
But it's kind of funny that you mentioned the weather because, for the show, we not only like to talk about what the guests are doing, but we like to talk about a topic that may be going on, in the world that's affecting everybody.
Right.
So obviously the weather right now, we're lucky in the West Coast, but the weather right now, a lot of places, I'm from Ohio originally, it's being affected by the snow. I don't miss the snow.
Full disclosure, Courtney and I went to school together at Northwestern University in Chicago. And I know that she can probably attest to the fact that neither of us miss any of the weather in Chicago. For Christ's sake, it was pretty damn awful.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So. I mean, I feel like we lucked out. My 4 years at least, like there wasn't a crazy snowstorm. I think we had like heavy snow once, but for the most part, it was just windy and cold, and that's not good for nobody.
No, I remember those days for sure. And it's funny because I used to ride my bike on campus, and it's like riding through slush and snow, and it was just like a thing. And people used to make fun of me because I never wear a heavy coat, because anytime you went into class, it was always like blazing hot.
Yeah.
They had the heat up, ridiculous levels. And so I never wanted to wear like one of those big goose down coats that you had to walk and take it off when you walked into class or something. So so we've been blessed with great weather out in Los Angeles. That's for sure.
We're getting it, but
that's why we're all here, and we dark, cold places.
Let's all brag about the weather right now.
Exactly.
While everybody's suffering,
everybody's suffering in the rest of the country, right?
But at least we're not supposed to be in charge of taking care of those who's suffering, because the biggest headline that's been circulating, especially in the last day or so, is that Mr. Ted Cruz, Senator of Texas, took himself a little trip to Cancun, and everybody was kind of like, brother, people are under snow and don't have water.
I know. He's trying to get away. You know what I mean? He's got to take a break from all that lying that he did for, the last 6 months. He's got to take a vacation from that. So people should give him a break and let him go have a vacation. He's worn out from all that falsehood he was peddling all that time. So, but I don't get surprised by anything that people do, especially Republicans at this point.
Ooh, good point.
I feel you on that. Yeah.
Well, do you think though that it's literally that he just, didn't realize the optics would be that bad, or just really didn't care?
Well, sure. I don't think he thought the optics would be that bad. I mean, he's tone deaf. I mean, it's like he's totally tone deaf. He's full of his own, slave to his own unconscious bias. He's a typical white dude. I mean, he's just gonna hop on a plane and head out, and everybody's gonna have something to say about it. But listen, I'll take that any day over the last 4 years that we've had with Donald Trump.
Amen.
I'm so glad to not be talking about that guy and don't see any tweets and don't see any craziness every day. I can, finally going back to not giving a damn about politics. We got the most boring president in the White House, which is exactly what we signed up for.
We need that right now.
Is a good dose of
yeah.
oatmeal. Okay, like that's what we needed.
Plain oatmeal, plain
oatmeal.
No honey, no raisins.
Not from the pack. Yeah.
Nothing.
That's exactly what we needed. And so we can move the hell on. The next step is try to get over COVID and, you know, get back out and try to be a normal human being at some point.
Normal human for sure.
yeah. You know, we're going to move on to obviously talking about the Lady in the Dale, but I will say this. When I saw the Ted Cruz thing, I wasn't surprised like you. I mean, you know, not surprised by it.
Right.
I just was more intrigued about the answer about how, you know, why he came back so quickly. He said he was just going to take his family there. He promised his daughter that he would take her to Cancun. Now, granted, the wife's there as well, so he basically did like a quick turnaround trip, and he's acting like it wasn't because of the criticism that he's received for all the photos of him being in the airport, you know, with his mask on, trying to be, you know, undercover, but you know, people weren't here for it. So I find that explanation. I'd rather him be like, listen, I planned a vacation. The timing was horrible. I'm back for the people.
Oh, sure.
You know.
Yeah, you asked too much.
You're right.
You asked too much. Politicians, they lie.
Yeah.
You know,
my expectations are too high.
What they do, exactly. Especially from Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
You know, if that was Sister Kamala Harris, you know, if that was her doing that, then yeah, you might expect a certain degree of authenticity. But you know, Ted Cruz is a born liar. You know,
that's true.
That's just what he does. So. But anyway, we can talk about that all day long. That's for
yeah,
sure.
we could definitely go on.
Right.
So now, sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
No, I was good. You ready? Roll in.
The Lady and the Dale.
We are ready.
We're ready. We're here for it. So I've been watching this, man, and even the first episode, I was just like, wow, it's so much going on.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, just
mouth open the whole time.
Mouth open. You know, we start off with the 70s transgender entrepreneur, Elizabeth Carmichael, who, you know, just the history of knowing that, you know, her life prior to that, and just the buildup of what the rest of the episodes are going to show. I'm already hooked. So I want to know from you, you know, why was it important for you to tell this story?
I mean, you know, the story itself, like, is at heart a true crime story.
It is.
And I'm a huge true crime fan. I mean, I watched kind of anything, you know, from the corniest, hokiest thing that you'll run into on like Lifetime or A&E or something like that, to, you know, Making a Murderer on Netflix, or The Jinx on HBO. I mean, it's like I'm just a genuine true crime fan. And so when this story came to me, it actually came to my partner in crime, Alan Bain, first, and he brought it over to me, and we both were looking at it at the same time. And the director, one of the directors, a guy named Nick Camilleri, the other co-director is Zachary Drucker, who's also trans herself. Nick, he had been working on this thing for like 8 years before it showed up to me and Alan, and he had been researching it and was just like this walking encyclopedia. And he sent me this little, you know, 1 minute like trailer. I mean, it was rough, it was unpolished, it was, you know, it was just unrefined, but it was something like clearly there. And we just were totally hooked. I mean, from the first time that we saw this thing, and the 8 years of research that he had done, you know, turned out to be just like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this thing went so deep. Anytime we opened up one thing, we found another. When we got, you know, documents from the Freedom of Information Act, from the FBI, and court records and stuff, it was just, the well just kept going like deeper and deeper. And it's one of these rare projects in town that everybody like has the same visceral reaction to the first time you show it to them. So Nick showed it to us, we fell in love with it. You know, I took it to Mark and Jay Duplass brothers, who were fantastic guys, and they were all over it. I mean, I went, you know, to their offices on a Friday, you know, and we did a deal by Monday, you know, over the weekend. I mean, it's just one of these just rare things. And then HBO, you know, that was the one and only place that we took it to, and they bought it within a week, and they're like, here's the money, go do it. So everybody had this like this this enormous and visceral reaction to it, kind of like immediately. And so we really knew we had something when we first saw it, and then the process just took its toll, and we just started digging and digging, and a couple of years later it's out to the market. But it's one of those things that you just know you got something when you have it, you know what I mean? So
Wow.
so yeah, I just had to tell the story. I mean, it was like there was no option. I mean, it's still to this day the first and only unsolicited inquiry I've ever answered. I get inquiries from filmmakers all the time. Anytime my name is in the news or a movie of mine comes out or something like that, people will reach out and say, hey, I've got this project. Sometimes it's from agents or managers, or sometimes just from random people that look you up on the internet and say, hey, I've got something that you might like. And I never dismiss anything, because you never know. Just never know. Just because somebody doesn't have representation doesn't mean they don't have a great project. I mean,
Very
like
true.
Case in point, Lady in the Dale, like this guy we plucked from total obscurity out of New Hampshire and reached out to us, and we just happened to be the guys that responded. I think he sent out inquiries to like 1,000 producers or something like that, and we just happened to be the one person that responded. And some of those producers, like a year later, we didn't announce the project because HBO doesn't like to announce the projects. They don't like to announce acquisitions. They only announce releases when the project is going to come out. So we were kind of working on it under the radar for quite some time. And several of those producers reached out to Nick to say, hey, you ever did anything with this project? And it's just like, yeah, it's off the market. We're full steam ahead at this point. So yeah, so it was one of those rare things. It was a fantastic idea, and it's true. Stranger than fiction. Can't write this stuff. Like
Wow.
you'll see once you get a chance to watch more of it. It gets crazier.
It's like, can it get crazier?
It gets mad crazy. Yeah, it gets mad crazy. It gets way crazier. You got 3 more episodes, and we could have did 10 episodes of this thing because of how deep the well goes. But we were just like, all right, we're going to do this in 4 parts. And tell the full-bodied story in that span in a 4-hour span of time. But yeah, you're in for a wild ride, that's for sure.
I had to call Courtney and tell her I was anxious because it was stressing me out. I was trying to look at it, and the kids, 21 days.
Like, you got 4 kids. Like,
and they're moving. You make friends with Bobby and Cindy, and you go home, and all of a sudden your parents are like, "Yo, we got to get in the car right now. We got to
go."
I'm like, what is going on? I was like, to be a kid and have that much just stress and anxiousness, it was causing me to be stressed watching.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. I mean, and that's like one of the central themes of The Lady in the Dale, which I was really attracted to, was like family. I mean, Black folks, we love stories about family.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, everything from The Godfather, a mob family, up through Empire, a music family. Like stories about family, soul food, just what it takes to try to like keep a family together is in and of itself already a yeoman's task. But to do it and be a part-time criminal,
right,
and
seasoned part-time criminal,
seasoned part-time criminal, and then go from this city to that city and this state to that state, and be on the run and keep your family together. It's really an incredible story. I mean, it just had every element for what it is I generally look for as a producer, in it. I love true crime stories. I love biographical stories. I love science fiction. This really fell into like 2 of those buckets, and just delivered, time after time. So yeah, you'll enjoy it for sure.
So when you got the project, was it always meant to be documentary? Was there any moment where you guys saw this in any sort of narrative feature type of situation, and why the choice to do documentary versus a narrative?
Yeah, so Nick was developing it as a single documentary actually when he first contacted us, and then Alan and myself and Mark and Jay all were in favor of the idea that we need to expand this into a multi-part series, and four felt like a good solid number. The narrative plans are in the works. They're always kind of in the works from the beginning. For sure, I produced a lot of narrative content as well, but it really was because it was stranger than fiction. It was like, you know, this is an easier and like faster to market way into the door. Making movies takes a while to ultimately get all the elements. It has mostly to do with actors' schedules than it does anything else. But it really was an opportunity to get kind of right into the story, pick up where he had left off in the research that he had done over time. And it was just really right for it. I mean, listen, I've been investing in and financing films for a long time, and have been financing documentaries for a long time, long before we sort of experienced the renaissance that we're in right now. Luckily, I'm part of that renaissance as well. But it thanks to Netflix, has really become a format that is as beloved and acceptable as a scripted feature or a scripted television series. People just kind of gobble up these docs, and it's a great business really to be in. And so I've always been a fan of both formats, just kind of as equally. So it made sense to kind of jump head first into this one this way.
Well, what I also love about it is that as we're starting to see in Hollywood, we're seeing more diversity. We're seeing
Right.
that the typical projects that are put out by African American producers, directors, are not the same stories. It's new things, and this to me falls in line with that. And I love the fact
Mhm.
that this is different from what we normally are seeing on TV or
Yeah.
film and everything. Are you seeing a full shift as far as the, how do I want to say it, like, are the dollars are the is the Hollywood executives who are not people of color, are they more willing to greenlight these projects now because they're seeing that, hey, these African American directors and producers can bring a variety of different projects that can go mainstream, or just speak to people of color, whatever that may be. But are you seeing
Right.
that they're willing to put those dollars into the project now versus what we've seen before, the same cycle?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that well, one, I think we have this conversation like every 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
There's sort of like, we talked about unconscious bias that exists. I don't think that it's I don't think that it is a deliberate thing to discriminate
Sure.
by many of these executives. I do think that some of them, I'll give them a pass to say that if you don't have any black friends, if you don't have any gay friends, if you don't have any female friends, even, then you're not going to be open to or even think twice about telling those stories at all.
Yeah.
Especially if you're pulling from the same pot kind of
Yeah.
all the time. And I'm often the only black guy in the room, which sort of serves as I'm like the diversity police, period.
Right.
Not just for black people.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
I mean, even this show, I mean, there's a lot of things that in the edit room that I flag, um, that don't necessarily just have to do with insensitive portrayals of or cuts of black folks, but of Asian people or trans people. I mean, we have a trans activist in Zachary Drucker, our co-director, who really sort of steered the ship and make sure that a lot of those sensitivities are properly categorized and protected. But really, without having that voice in the room, and the lack of those voices in the room, you'll continue to have the cultural insensitivity that might exist in our content. because you just don't have somebody sitting there saying, I mean, I have to say that stuff all the time. And at first it was like annoying, you know, it was like, okay, what's wrong with these people? You know, they just don't, but it's like, are you just that tone deaf
Right.
and blind to society that you live in? But then it, you know, probably took maybe 2 or 3 projects to realize that no, it's kind of none of the above. It's really the sheer lack of non-white access and non-straight, you know, heterosexual male access, period. And
Yeah.
if you don't have those colleagues, if you don't work with those people, if you don't have those friends, if you don't have those family members, then you're just not going to think about those stories. So I think we're in a cultural moment for sure, in which a lot of that stuff is shifted or shifting. Um, the money is still controlled by white folks. The content, ultimately distribution, is still controlled by white folks. But I think that the younger execs that start to step into some of these roles, or at least even they step into junior roles, because a lot of these execs that run the networks, you know, they've been around forever,
Right.
and they're holding on to those roles. You know, it's a very, very powerful role. But with the advent of opening up doors and inclusion when it comes to even some of their deputies or some of their junior executives that might help steer them in another direction, then it provides an opening for a lot of this content. And I'm glad to, you know, to be a part of it and finally see it.
Yeah. Now, just speaking to the idea of, you know, more diversity needs to be at the table, obviously, for these decisions to continue to shift and all that. There's also seemingly a cultural conversation happening now in terms of how much longer are we going to beat down the wall to get to this table without, or versus just completely building your own thing over here that supports the culture that we believe in and support. Being someone that's sort of, you know, you've had success in the system as it exists, where do you kind of fall in that debate? And is there more value in maintaining the system and trying to keep pushing forward in it? Or at this point, are we empowered enough to really, you know, build something entirely separate that deserves our energies and our creativity?
It's a really good question. I mean, I certainly am always been an advocate of Black-owned media. You know, my company is Black-owned media, obviously, and really grew up that way with my father being a huge advocate of it. And Dick Gregory is another project I'm working on. You know, being a huge advocate of it all the time and really believing in it. So I think that's sacrosanct to this process. But to answer your first question, you know, the reality is we'll be fighting this indefinitely. You know, it will be an ongoing. It's not our system. We didn't create the system, just like we didn't create the government. You know, the government itself, you know, people were surprised at this insurrection that happened during January 6th. And I'm like, the entire government is built on white supremacy. The whole Constitution was designed around this idea to maintain that. And the Hollywood system, you know, while not deliberately or specifically built in the same way that the U.S. government was, you know, was designed to kind of maintain control over the narrative and the stories that are ultimately telling. The difference now, and especially I think in the last decade or so, and a lot of credit, you know, regardless if you're a fan of his work or not, but really to Tyler Perry, is having control over your content. And that the difference, you know, in the 2000s versus when I was growing up in the 80s or even the 90s, was that Black people are telling this, we're directing our own stories, you know, as opposed to having a white savior story or having a white director direct and tell these stories about slavery or this, that, and the other. We're being allowed to, because the system sees that the diverse content. The system is starting to see that diversity actually makes for better content. And I've been saying that for a long time, like more diverse voices in the room actually yield better stories, actually makes for better movies. You know, most movies are bad. I mean, let's be honest, like most of them suck.
That's true.
And that's because they're coming from the exact same perspective, you know, kind of all the time. But if you have female voices in the room, if you have black, brown, yellow, red voices in the room, you have gay, straight, you know, bisexual, transgender voices, queer voices in the room, you're going to have a wealth of experiences. And, you know, I'm proud to say that that type of representation existed behind the scenes, you know, with Lady in the Dale. I mean, to have a diverse kind of perspective of folks from all different directions, and my involvement made the show better.
Yeah.
You know, Mark and Jay's involvement, their lived experience made the show better. You know, Alan Bain and Nick Camilleri and Zachary Drucker, you know, made the show better. And even the editors, you know, hiring them to be some people of color and to be transgender and to be of the LGBT community and things like that for this particular show made it better. So yeah, I think that to answer your second question is that there are a lot of platforms now that are being started, you know, by Black entrepreneurs. You know, there's a good number of them out there that are of you know, streaming platforms, you know, for niche audiences, kind of taking the same playbook out of the DVD era. You know, for a long time there was a lot of Black filmmakers that could never get a mainstream job, never get hired for a mainstream job or even mainstream representation, and decided to go and you know, independently finance their content and distribute it on DVD. And it was, you know, this huge DVD market that existed for a long time. I think you're starting to see that now with some of the streaming platforms that are coming out there, which is great.
Yeah, it's showing that there's a lot of different ways that you can get your content out there. It's not the traditional way doesn't have to be the only way anymore, as we're seeing.
Right.
But for young, you know, directors, producers, executives, what would you tell them as advice to get them able to be at the table? Like how do you get a ticket to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot, especially because folks that are on YouTube want to be on HBO. You know,
right.
folks that are on, you know, Instagram doing some content want to be on Netflix somehow. And I think that you know, the best piece of advice that I've always given, because I mentor a lot of young first-time filmmakers, and I just say, you know, you keep making content and keep putting it out there, because the beauty now is that you don't have to wait to get your short into a film festival in order for it to be seen. If you got a great short film, you know, it's going to end up on Vimeo staff picks at some point, uploading your content, you know, to that platform, you know, or it's going to start to get viral and get some views on YouTube. And folks like me, you know, that scroll through those platforms all the time, will end up coming across it, you know, and there's sort of part of that just kind of luck of the draw, but the other part is that, you know, I'm not the only producer in town. There's tons of us. So
right.
if you're exposing yourself and you're putting your content out there, you know, you have to wait for anybody else to do it. And you know, the other thing too is that there's a difference between television and film. You know, film is anybody can go make a movie. If you have the money, you can go make a movie. You're not necessarily sell that movie or get major distribution, but you can go make a movie if you like. You know, television, mainstream television, is very insular. It's a fairly closed off kind of environment, you know, made of writers and producers and folks like that, that are kind of in a club, so to speak, in some kind of way. But the way that almost everybody made it into there was really through cinema, and through writing, screenwriting, you know, directing, producing some way. And so if there's somebody who has an idea, man, you know, the iPhone that's a motion picture camera. That thing is the most powerful tool ever exist. No, seriously. I mean,
That's true.
most television broadcasts, people don't know this, like for news, most television broadcasts that is not in studio. Anytime they send out to a reporter that's reporting live from Staples Center, that kind of thing, a lot of that stuff is shot on an iPhone. You know, a great deal of it is shot on an iPhone. I mean, I did an interview for Spectrum News for this show that they came to my house, and, you know, they had an iPhone rig, you know, just set up and shot it and looked fantastic. Wow. And so people can go and take these devices that are sitting in their pockets, write a script, you know, get some actors. If you can't get some actors, get some family and friends, and start telling some stories. And there's so many ways to do it now. It's just, it's almost too many options.
Right. It's almost overload. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost too many options. People just, and for me, it's like, you know, be a platform king of some kind when you're in this environment now where you just have so many options. It's like you can't dominate every one of these platforms that are out there. So just choose one and really go full force on it. You know, whether that's YouTube, whether that's, you know, Twitter, whether that's Instagram, whatever it is, just really try to keep pushing your content out there on whatever platform that you choose. That's the best idea that I would have.
Well, like looking forward in the industry itself and even your own creative like desires in life, like what are you looking at that it keeps you excited and keeps you inspired about what's to come and what else you want to do?
You know, what keeps me excited, and the interesting thing about the answer is that, like, my content is pretty diverse. You know, I mean, I've made movies in Brazil and Latin America, live action and animated films, you know, produced a lot of movies with Studio Canal out of France. And, you know, I've also made Bill Nye Science Guy and Lady in the Dale and, you know, so I really just make what I like, you know, or what I want to see. And it's not exclusively one thing or the other. I mean, they kind of fall into one of those three buckets that I described. But, you know, what's really, really exciting right now, I think, as a Black male is, and a Black person, is really getting to see that we're telling our stories. You know, I was a good friend, Charles King. I was, you know, sending him kudos on Judas and the Black Messiah long before it ever came out.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, you know, that brother like directed the hell out of that movie. And had that been the mid 90s, you know, had that been the mid 80s when Glory came out, you know, that would have gone to, you know, any major white director in town who had the pick of the litter of what it is, the story that they wanted to tell, and we would have just had to live with it.
Yeah.
You know, but now you've got this young, brilliant director who is modest in his own right, with his own brilliance, that has the platform, thanks to companies like Macro and Braun and Participant and all of these places, that realize putting that guy in that director's chair will make a better film. And making a better film means more subscribers to the platform, means greater viewership, means larger ratings. And all of those things mean better profits, larger profits for everybody. And at the end of the day, that's what matters in Hollywood, is if the powers that be see that they can make more money through inclusion, then inclusion goes right up to the
Right.
top of the list.
Right.
Like, okay, this is something, there's a long standing tradition in television that you build a network off of the back of a Black audience, and then you kind of shift it into the mainstream. We have multiple examples of this, throughout history, as far back as the days of Amos and Andy. But the reality is that if we also take those Black, brown, yellow, gay, straight faces and put them behind the camera in the director's chair, put them behind the camera in the producer's chair, in the writer's seat, all of those things, oh, surprise, it actually makes for a better story. It actually makes for a better end product and a better film. And if we have a better film, then there's a bigger box office and kind of everything around. So I think that's how we vote. We vote really with our viewership, and we vote with our dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah, but it makes me very excited for the possibilities for the future.
It does.
To even look at, like, my young nephews and cousins who want to be filmmakers, and they're young, and they're like 13 and 12, and to think
Right.
about where this will all lead to in the future. It's exciting. It's exciting to see where this is all going to go. And I think with people like you, our teams and people of color, as we are moving more towards, like, look what Regina King's doing right now, just making
it's
projects.
fantastic. You know what I mean? And it's a shame it took so long.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, she's one of these stories that it was going to take a while for her to get an Oscar, and then she finally got one. But just look at the creativity that blossoms from that confidence.
Yeah.
Agreed. That she has to make this movie, One Night in Miami. I mean, it's like this. It's a great time to really be a content creator. I think it's a really great time to be a content creator of color. And what you guys are doing, I think it's a great time to be a media producer and developer in this time as well, just because we really need platforms like yours, and we really need news that we can really relate to at the end of the day. And so it's promising, but I never want to get complacent.
Right about that. Yeah.
I'm normally in those stars sitting behind you. That's where my optimism lies. I inherited that from my dad, who never says anything is wrong or falling apart. Even if the sky is falling around, it's thank God he gave us eyes to see. And for me, I think that's where my default position is. But because I also know just how the business works, it's like we have to take this moment, and we have to keep, like, kind of thumbing into the wound until it's kind of calloused and closed. Because if you get complacent and say, oh, great, it's like the Obama years, look what happened.
Right. Literally,
that's where I was going.
Right.
I'm like,
those are the Obama years. we got these Black kids running around on the White House lawn. It can't get any better. Boom, Trump. It's like you sat around and got complacent and let this fool get elected. And luckily we got out of it. And so now we've got a sister who's in the White House as vice president, and it's and a sane president and that kind of thing. We can't get complacent for the next election and that sort of thing. So really the same exists within Hollywood, which is a very, very small community. And, we've constantly got to keep each other on our toes and constantly be, bringing up these things and saying, like, hey, you gotta pay attention to them. So, yeah, so I'm there with you for sure.
Yeah. And what's next? I know you mentioned, several projects that you're working on, Dick Gregory included. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
But what's next?
Yeah. So next is a film I produced during the pandemic. It was one of two movies that were shooting in the world during from March to May of last year during the first lockdown that we experienced. We were filming the reboot to Stephen King's Children of the Corn in Australia. Listen, this was one of the first movies I was ever frightened to death of. And I was the baby of the family. So like my brother and dad and uncles and stuff were always watching horror movies, The Predator and Jason Friday the 13th and all this stuff. And I was like scared to death of these things. But I wanted to be in I wanted to hang out with them. And so I would, go in there, bury my head in the pillow and just kind of watch, between like a
little piece
little
of it.
sheet.
Like
I could just, as long as I could see
underneath
that, as long as I could close that gap fast enough, then I was fine. And this was like the first movie I remember seeing. I was too young to see it when it first came out in 1984, but by the end of the 80s, I was able to try to jump in there and was just frightened to death of it. So when the opportunity came to, to remake it, I just said, yeah, I absolutely have to do this. And my company, we co-financed the film with another company out of China, Digital Domain, and shot it in Australia. And the interesting thing about it is that our producer on the ground, Lucas Foster, who was really brilliant in his execution of this, flew to China, like into Hong Kong in January of last year. And I remember when we got on the phone, just hearing how this was not a local virus. This
Yeah.
COVID thing is like, this is a serious business. And then we started seeing it trickle into the U.S. Because the other executive producer, my partner Alan Bain on Lady in the Dale, he's really into Szechuan Chinese food, and so we were going all around San Gabriel Valley to all these Chinese restaurants. And when you arrived, there was signs on the door with all of this, some in English and some in Chinese or Mandarin, that were saying, we're going to have to take your temperature for you to come in here. And so that's the first time I saw that gun, that temperature
Yeah.
gun
Temperature
that
gun,
they use,
yeah.
that everybody's using now. And we're just la-di-da, we're going to a restaurant. It's like, fine, take our temperature. We're going to sit down and eat some food. And it was all happening just kind of real time. And so by virtue of that, we were prepared with a lot of PPE and, insurance protections and all this other stuff to keep moving forward with the film. And we got greenlit by the New South Wales Film Commission down in Australia to go ahead with our movie. And so we were one movie, and there was another movie filming. Netflix was shooting in like, I think, Greenland. And we were like the only two movies shooting in the world. I know John David Washington and Zendaya were shooting Malcolm and Marie kind of silently, but we were the only ones publicly, like, New York Times that caught us, was put a profile at Vanity Fair, and we were trying to be quiet, like, don't say anything. And then like the Daily Mail from UK showed up and it was like, look at all these people on set not social distancing and this, that, and the other. And we were way ahead of it. Everybody had their tests and everything like that. So that film, has a backstory, and it will finally be coming out this year. And then of course, Dick Gregory, this is a film near and dear to me, that I'm actually the director of. I did everything. We, finance, produce, wrote, direct. I'm the Tyler Perry of the Dick Gregory story. And it's a project that I started 6 years ago. Started filming him back in 2015, and became really good friends with him really for a couple of years between that time and when he passed away in late 2017, and friends with his whole family. Is just a beautiful family. A lot of people don't realize he has 10 children, all brilliant, successful, men and women, and stars really in their own right, and their given professions. And and his wife Lillian is just fantastic. I mean, it was just one of the best experiences I've ever had. And we weren't making the film necessarily over a 6-year period. You get kind of distracted with other projects that you're working on and things like that. But over that period of time, has just been slow and steady process to make sure that we really get it right. And I think we've got it right now, and it's finally going to be coming out. I can't be more thrilled about it. It's going to be awesome.
I'm excited. I mean, you had me at Children of the Corn. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a horror guy.
Yeah,
so
right.
Courtney saw my
Horror.
face when I read
Right.
when I read
you
Children of
raised
the
your
Corn.
hand,
I was
like,
like, yeah, I'm one of them.
No.
I love 80s horror movies.
Oh,
so
we got to
cannot
get
wait.
together, man.
I can't
because
wait.
I don't have any friends. My
Oh.
wife and I are like the sole couple in our tribe of friends that like horror movies.
Oh.
I don't make many of them. Children of the Corn is one of really, again, falls into the science fiction bucket for me. And sci-fi thriller, sci-fi horror, whatever it is. And but yeah, we don't have any friends that like horror movies.
Oh well, we'll talk.
Yeah, right. We need to.
I go to sleep.
Courtney, do you?
I love horror films, but what's funny?
Sleep to horror movies.
I do.
You're hardcore. You're
hardcore. He's like,
it relaxes me to watch Friday the 13th Part 4. And
oh no, that's true. I will give you that. Yeah, because that like those 80s horror movies, which are kind of like absurd now, to be honest. They're comfort food. They have this nostalgia sort of built into them. And after I got over being scared of horror movies as a kid, which wasn't long, it took like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 watchings of something to finally kind of get into the groove. I've always been looking for something that is actually scary. And to be honest, it was like, Lauren and I, my wife, we were talking, we're like, I don't think we've been really scared of anything in a long time. I don't think we've been really scared of anything since the first Paranormal Activity. Like,
I agree.
That one was legitimately,
it was.
I mean, it was like so much anxiety, built into this film that it legitimately was frightening, but not many since then. So
Well, I got you, Andre. We're gonna
I know, right? We'll have a watch party.
I got a list. I got a list in my head.
It's on my list. Like, I got feelings about Children of the Corn. No, Children of the Corn.
No, everybody does.
Those are 2 I got problems with.
Everybody does. It's like this is the line I draw for Children of the Corn. Everybody hears that I'm making it. They're like, no, I'm not doing that. That movie scared me to death. I'm still traumatized by it.
I'm still
and it's
traumatized.
Not happening.
100%.
Yeah, no, but
I literally haven't watched it
movie.
since the first time I tried to watch it, and God knows, like, it was on TV at that point, so maybe the early 90s. I don't know. It was not
right. Well, they did some reboots or remakes of it.
Yeah, Sci-Fi had a reboot.
Yeah, and they were more kind of on the corny side, of things. And what we're trying to do is really ground it and bring it into kind of a modern reality. And more. The film is mostly based on the original short story from Stephen King than it is from the original movie. Okay. And so yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I can't wait for that to come out as well.
I'm excited. Where can fans find out more about what projects you have coming out, or just anything that you're doing on social media?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm back on Twitter, I should say. I went off ages ago just because I was like so incredibly busy, and I was like, I don't know how people keep up with this stuff. Then I realized they hire people, and so so I'm on Twitter at Andre Gaines, and then Instagram at Andre L Gaines. Anybody can reach out to me there. I'm not hard to find, I'm on IMDb and Google me, people find me, in weird kind of ways, but yeah, I've never hid from the public for sure.
I love that. Courtney, where can people find you?
I'm all over social media at Stuart Starlet.
And you can find me at Daryl Kristen on all the social media platforms, and also on Entertainment Tonight Live. And you can catch me watching a horror movie from the 80s as well, pretty much, right. And 90s as well. There's some good ones in the 90s.
Oh, there's some good ones.
There's some good ones in the 90s. So you can catch me watching those all year long. It could be Christmas, I'm watching a horror movie. It could be Valentine's Day, I'm watching a horror movie.
I love them. I love them, man. Yeah, we got to get together. We will. So
for sure. Yeah, well, congratulations for everything, everyone else.
Pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Please,
Yeah,
everyone,
great.
tune in to Lady in the Dale. You will not be disappointed. You're going to be
HBO,
hooked.
guys.
You might as well get your popcorn and your wine because you're going to sit there and watch the entire episodes the entire
Oh,
time.
yes. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on. You have a great night.
Thank you.
too.
You do the same.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.